How to use inversion. So this is not my own idea. This is something I'm stealing from very successful investors and mathematicians, particularly Charlie Munger. I hope you know who that is. Is very, very famous for using this principle in his investing companies when he was working with Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway. This was the most famous principle that they famously used to get the firm to where it is today and where it was from the ground up. This was the principle they used, inversion. And so Charlie Munger would used to say, invert, always invert. And I think he actually stole that from another mathematician. But the point is, he's like screaming this at the camera. He's screaming this at the press. People have written biographies about this guy, and entire chapters are dedicated to the idea of inversion. So what is it? I mean, it's what it sounds like, right? It's the inverse. It's the opposite. It's doing the thing, but just flipping it on its head and figuring out what not to do, basically. That's kind of what I've found to be the most useful aspect of inversion. It helps you to understand what not to do, and then that then allows you to avoid making that mistake. And the beauty of this is that when you figure out what not to do, it is a lot easier to figure out when compared to figuring out what you should do or what will lead you to success. Instead, if you use inversion, like Charlie Munger says, and you figure out what behaviors will lead to failure and then just not doing them, then you apply inversion to whatever it is you want to do in your life. It doesn't matter if it's a business, whether it's art, whether it's a relationship, asking the girl, shooting your shot. It doesn't matter what it is. If you are able to understand from an inverted perspective what not to do and not doing it, then you will succeed. Because you're avoiding every single possible pitfall, every single possible mistake that everyone else makes, that everyone else gets stuck in. So you're literally just fully prepared for the moment. You're fully prepared to succeed because you're not doing the behaviors that will lead to failure. So that's kind of the principle behind inversion, right? It's figuring out what not to do and not doing it. I think there's another famous quote by somebody that I forgot their name of that said, "Tell me where I'm gonna die, like the place where I'm gonna die, and I just won't go there." Right? It's inverting the fact that, if you know where you're gonna die, then you just don't go there and you won't die. Obviously that doesn't make sense, but still the same principle applies. So how do you actually do this, right? How do you actually use inversion in your life, in your business, in your craft, in your career, in your relationships? So I'll talk about it from a business perspective because that's kind of the perspective that I enjoy the most. So say you're an entrepreneur, you want to start a business. It doesn't matter what kind of business. Maybe it's a clothing brand. You want to start a clothing brand selling locally sourced cotton woven clothes from a Shopify store, like an e-commerce store, right? So it's locally sourced, so people that would buy the thing could not get that material or that design anywhere else in the world because you're sourcing it from where you're from. Cool, right? That's a cool idea. So you start the Shopify store and blah blah blah. You design you actually make the clothes. They're actually pretty good, and then things just don't work, right? Things just are not picking up. You're spending money on ads, but they're not converting. So you're getting stuck in the cycle of failing but learning from your mistakes. Okay, so how can we apply inversion to this scenario? First, you need to look at what you're doing on a daily basis for this business. Like what behaviors, what actions are you taking on a daily or weekly basis to move this business forward, right? And so once you've actually wrote those down, it becomes easier to like wrap your arms around, okay, so this is what I do every day. This is what I'm doing for the business. Let's figure out what is wrong, okay? And so instead of so you've written those down. You've written down all the things that you do for your business, and we can just assume that because you're doing those for your business, you you have the understanding that those actions will lead you to some level of success. Sure, right? But then on another piece of paper, what you want to do is write down every single possible behavior that you have discovered along the way to not lead you to success. So what if you figure it out did not work, right? What did not work that you figured out in the past? And maybe some of the things that you're doing right now don't work, but you still do them, right? So write down every single thing that you do for your business, for this clothing brand, that you know doesn't work based off of prior experience or based off of advice you've gotten from other people or from just your experience of learning as you've done the thing. Write those down and then cross them out because you won't do them anymore. And what you'll realize is that there are quite a few things on that list that you still do. There are still quite a few things on that list that you've realized have led you to have strayed you farther away from success, and you still do them. And so this is the principle, right? You want to figure out what not to do and don't do it. This is how you avoid mistakes. This is how you stop digging yourself into a deeper pit. You have to first step away and realize and accept the fact that, maybe your daily actions aren't actually moving the needle. Maybe they're actually holding you back. They're pulling you away from the revenue target that you're going for or the level of quality that you're going for. So you need to use inversion here. You need to realize that, okay, I need to figure out what not to do, because if I know what those things are, then I will fail less. I will make progress faster because I won't be making progress in the wrong direction. So I guess it's about directional correctness, right? When you're using inversion, because you're still doing shit, you're still moving in a direction, you're still making progress. But whenever you don't invert and you just do things, then you might be digging in the wrong direction, right? You might be there might be a pile of gold if you dug to the right, but instead you're digging to the left, you're digging down, and you're digging forward. You're digging in every single direction besides where you actually need to go. But if you invert and realize, okay, so I figured out that digging left was not the right move, so we can invert that, and we don't do that anymore. I figured out that going forward didn't lead me anywhere. Going down actually caused me to reach deeper levels of the sediment, so my tools were working more often, and I still wasn't finding any gold. So there's one other direction to go, right? And so you choose to not go in the other directions, and you choose to go in the one direction you haven't gone in yet. That was a pretty bad analogy, I won't lie. But the point is, right, you don't want to focus on what to do. You want to focus on what not to do, and then don't do them. The biggest mistake you can make is trying to figure out the right move and overthinking it and expecting outcomes from a decision because you've analyzed and thought about what the right decision was. Instead of putting yourself through that risky decision-making process that won't even actually lead you to success, invert. Figure out what not to do. Figure out the worst possible decision based off of what you've learned, what other people have told you, and don't do them. And when you do this, you avoid the biggest mistakes that other people make. You avoid every failure that you could possibly face. This saves you from even the minor failures that might kind of be a nuisance or annoying or might waste a little bit of your time. But those things stack up. So whenever you invert, you avoid mistakes, basically. You're avoiding wasting time and money and energy. And that is the highest ROI, right? You like when you think about it, whenever you make a bad decision or you fail at something, it's because you did something that was not going to get you towards your goal and you didn't realize it, right? And so when you use inversion properly and you actually use it and like truthfully to yourself and like brutally just cut out everything from your life and from your business and from your career that doesn't align with your goal, You just cut it out and you realize that, oh, that's what I don't want to do because it doesn't lead me to my goal. Then you're only left with things that either are neutral, like they don't move you in the wrong direction or in the right direction, and you also have the few things that actually get you to where you want to go. Right? And so whenever people get stuck in the trap of failing and digging themselves into a deeper hole, it wastes time, right? You spend more time doing that. So instead of wasting that time, spend the time to think about what behaviors you want to cut out. Think about how to invert, right? What not to do. Spend time thinking about that, and you will waste less time doing the things that you shouldn't be doing. So it's like, yeah, find out where you're going to die and then go there. Figure out where you could possibly fail, where others have failed, where you yourself have failed, and don't do it again. Don't go there. Don't make that decision. Don't bring on that team member, right? Don't hire that person. Don't sell using that supplier. Don't work with that manufacturer. Don't use that shipping policy. Don't use that guarantee, right? Figure out where people have gone wrong, where you could possibly go wrong, and just don't do it. Instead of focusing on what you should be doing, which is a lot more difficult, figure out what you shouldn't be doing. Okay, I feel like I'm just screaming the same thing, the same principle, but I hope you get it now. Inversion is so powerful. It's genuinely built up the most successful careers and companies and artists to ever live. And it's such a simple principle, but I feel like not enough people, including myself, actually do it. We know of it, but we don't actively do it. So just make this a little habit, It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Just, it's all internal. It's all in your head. Just take a step back every now and then and ask yourself whether the thing you're doing is actually leading you in the right direction, and then invert it. Figure out, okay, what is something that I'm doing that actually isn't getting me where I want to go, and then just don't do it. Instead of trying to search for the magical pill that will solve all your problems, find the pill that you think you're taking that's actually causing problems. Goodbye.